hold, so.
Cool.
Okay, there's a lot of people still coming in.
Dirk, will you please excuse me? I'm going to be slipping in and out of the meeting today. I've got some workmen here that need my attention, so it's just going to be
Sure.
kind of up and down.
Sure, no problem. There's a lot of note takers in this meeting. Hey, Peter.
Good morning, Dirk. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're good, man.
Awesome.
How's it, Brian?
Hey, Dirk.
Free State's obviously cold. If you look at Ferdy. Okay. Morning, Haley.
Morning.
Morning, Diane. Sure. Someone's
Morning,
got
Dirk.
their
How are you?
good in yourself.
Good, thanks.
Sure. Let's see, gonna have to mute someone. They're driving. Here we go. Sure, nice to have a full house. Obviously, everyone's interested in AI. I've actually started testing Saturn. Yeah, it's quite amazing. Anyway, we're going to have Tom just do a demo for us. Obviously, we're an hour ahead of the UK. So I have said to him, it's okay if he logs on at our time, 9 o'clock. But I'm sure I saw there were a whole lot of, apart from mine, there were quite a few Saturns in the meeting. If I can just ask, what other AI are you guys currently using on this side, on like the note taking side? Okay, Fathom, Brian. Anyone else using something different?
I'm using Fireflies.
Okay.
Yeah, we also used Fireflies, but we now waiting for Wealthbox, our CRM's new AI note taker, to come live. It's a new feature that they are rolling out, so we're waiting on that.
Okay. So they've gone. So that's a CRM where they've now incorporating a note taker.
Yeah, we used Fireflies, but it didn't integrate that well with Wealthbox. So we've actually decided to sort of go back to manual for now and wait for Wealthbox as well to see what that looks like.
Okay. Yeah, I think the integration is important. But yeah, it's quite difficult, I think, because there are just so many of these things coming out all the time, and they're literally getting better as we work with them. It's a space where I think there's just so much movement at the moment. It's quite difficult to nail something down. But I think at the end of the day, you've got to just like go with one of them and stick with it. Okay, Fireflies. Yeah. And anyone else using any other type of AI in the business in a different way?
We used Read AI, and that was horrible. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It became like a virus. But we make use of ChatGPT quite a lot, obviously.
Okay. How are you using that?
All sorts of things. It helps me sometimes even when I'm having conversations. The other day, as an example, a client was deciding Sorry, Becky, do you mind muting? Another day, the client was deciding whether they wanted to keep their parents' life policy or not, and I did like a break-even calc in 10 seconds while we were talking. So for small things, and then maybe just for restructuring longer or more complex emails, proofreading, stuff like that for now. But then for my personal stuff, I've built like a health bot, like a coach. That's a bit more interesting.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen is that they're really powerful, but I think where we've got to be very careful is that can't really replace us, and but they can make us probably quite lazy and unimaginative. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how people balance to make us more efficient, to get work done a lot quicker, but at the same time not to rely on it too heavily. Because I think that is it's a real possibility. I use like ChatGPT for articles and things just to check and to help. But it would be really easy just to use it more, making my brain quite lazy. So yeah. And just CRMs, Ben. Yeah, sorry, Ben, you got your hand up.
So Dick, I just want to mention with all the AI note takers and things, like you said, there's so many of them out there. I was just going to say one thing is just be careful of is people should just look at where is the data held, like what country, because like obviously with Poppy as well, that becomes becomes actually quite an issue, because remember all our meetings, if you're recording them, that's very personal information. So it's better if it goes to a country where there's in the EU, because they've got very strict protection of information rules. But if it's going to America, where like a lot of stuff is America, they don't have any rules, and the government has full access to all of that, to that information and stuff as well. So it's best to try and see if you can get a note taker or any AI or whatever you're using, the data is actually stored in a EU server rather than American server. And then just secondly, because of Poppy as well, you're allowed to take client data overseas, but the client must be aware of it. So maybe as well, just looking at your consent forms, just updating consent forms that data is being moved out of the country. It's just something to think about.
Okay, so which of these stores the info in America? Do you know or not?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know, like for example, like with like ChatGPT, for example, who was this? One of the big like CRM companies, they were asking for a server specifically in the EU because they didn't want the stuff to go to America and things like that. So yeah, it's just important to, when you're doing your due diligence on any AI or any tool. I mean, even the other day, someone was uploading a PDF just up into the internet randomly to get it, password protected, and I'm like, that's a huge risk because you don't actually even know where this, and that's like a policy schedule that you're uploading all of the information, So just things like that, Tim. It's just got to be careful. Where is that data going, or where is it being stored?
It's actually quite scary because it's someone like me. It's almost impossible to. I mean, it becomes like a full-time job to work all these things out. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all that stuff unfolds. Not sure what Donald's going to do with the policy schedule of Mrs. Jones living in Cape St. Francis, but I suppose anything's possible. So yeah, quite interesting. Wow, I don't think we've had an attendance like this, unless that's everyone's note takers on the right there. It's probably the best attendance we've had for a while, which is great. Yeah, so Tom's going to come on. We did a demo to the Volunteer Association a few weeks ago. As I said, he's done one for us, or for me, and I've looked at it, and I've started trialing it. what's really cool about, when I was in London a few months ago, there are quite a few of these guys that have got there are a lot of these products out there. And what was really cool, actually, they get to understand your business, and they try and make your version personal to your processes and everything, and the way that you run your business, which is really cool. Because as I said, I think these things are developing all the time, and we don't know where they're going to go, but they are getting more and more complex, and they're able to do a lot more things. I got onto these guys because of Dan Haylett. I know Dan uses them. Alan Smith uses them. All those trap guys. So obviously, if it's good enough for them, it's probably a smart move to look at them. The cost as well I think is really reasonable. It's £100 a month, which is £2,500. And if you think of, and I know for smaller single advisors, it's an expense, but I think if you can utilize it properly, the few meetings I've used it in already, it's literally you finish the meeting, and within 2 or 3 minutes, I get an email saying it's ready.
I can't even get internet connection now.
Yeah. So I think it's an important thing that we need to consider in businesses. I mean, you can probably run a business without it, but I just think it's something that can assist a hell of a lot, regardless of the size of your business. I also know that that this does integrate as well. So it does integrate with Xplan, because I know that they've got Xplan is still quite a big CRM over there. So it does integrate as well. I'm not sure how. We're currently on Zoho, so we haven't gone that route yet. But yeah. So anyone else want to ask or share anything on the AI side? Ben, I know you guys with Francois, you're doing a lot of this stuff, and you were working with a lot of businesses. Where are you guys with all of this?
Yeah, so we use a lot of, especially automations. So we've got a lot of automations running in the background. That like a lot of that's doing like follow-ups and those kind of things, which is great because then you can send out one email and then you almost forget about it, which is pretty awesome. And then obviously we've been doing a lot of training in Chat GPT, and then just helping people to create their own GPTs. So for businesses, and it's amazing to see what other people have come up with, in that. A lot of it is note takers. Like you said, there's a lot of different use cases. This obviously depending on what people think of. But yeah, note takers is a big one.
Yeah. Ben, I'm going to be greedy. I mean, do you think, because you've been part of this group for a long time, I know you're with Francois now, but I mean, would you consider in one of the sessions in future giving us half an hour and just explaining how we build our own ChatGPT? Because we hear everyone talk about it, and I now can watch videos, but for someone of my age, it is a bit of a challenge. But would you perhaps consider that?
Yeah,
just give us some general rules around like what to do or what not to do, because I think it can obviously help everyone.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. Becky, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit, respond to your question on the AI's deck. So I mean, I've been using Read for my consulting business quite well. I hear Ben's point around where the servers are. So probably some food for thought there, Ben. But yeah, so I mean, just in terms of like just something simple where I just take minutes. So I mean, it comes with like a summary of the discussion points and action points and that sort of thing. So like for just sort of simple meetings, Read has been working quite well. But we're currently working right now on a pilot with a couple of FSPs with FinMet, the one that I just posted on in the day. So they like a specialized note taker for financial advice businesses. It's actually developed by an ex-financial advisor. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they've got some sort of policy around deleting the information or something like that. I don't know how like how that would address some of the specific issues. So I mean, I suppose like past my pilot, happy to share, if there's any sort of interest in learning that. So from an advice business, I'll say FinMet, but just taking notes that I personally use on a basis. I mean, is this $20 or $30 or something like that I pay per month for it? And it's been working quite well for me, just normal meetings. But I think it's quite inefficient to try and take minutes of meetings and remember what you discussed and that sort of stuff, right? So it just sort of really helps me on my consultancy.
Okay, cool.
Efficiencies on that. So able to share a little bit more on FinMet, but you guys free to also just click on that. It gives so the link I sent it gives a 5-hour free trial period. I mean, there's lots of advisors in the States using it already. I think it's some shout outs from Michael Kittis in the US. So quite established in that market from a note-taking perspective. So yeah, so if anyone wants to give it a try, let me know what you think. But we're formally right now doing pilot with a couple of FSP.
Cool. Thanks, Becky.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So Brian says he's actually attending Francois' course today on building your own ChatGPT. So cool. Cindy, you're asking whether it's Saturn's, it's for offline meetings as well. So there's an app that you can simply just start when you're in a meeting, and it'll record everything. What is really cool is that you can then actually, it analyzes the voices in the meeting, and you can then link them to a client or yourself. And moving forward, it'll always recognize those voices and automatically then. So yeah, so anyway, so we're trialing it. Russell, yourself? I know you said using Fathom.
Yes, I use Fathom at the moment. It's quite efficient for me and Monique's practice. So we found it quite useful. I would say also it's quite fairly cost effective. I mean, it's like 200 to 300 Rand a month. So I think for like the small advisors, we find it's quite useful. And then the nice thing, and I picked that up from Brian initially, and we were like testing it out, is that it records both the notes and meeting notes, sends you an automated summary afterwards, and it's very, very accurate, I'll be honest. I've been using it the last few weeks. And then it also attaches links per each item to the actual video recording with like timestamps. So the client can even go back and like watch it. And also the data is very secure. So I've looked at that as well. And then nice thing that I've been trying out from Brian's perspective that he also showed me is like you can feed the recording into, again, ChatGPT Plus, which is more secure if you want to, or the Fathom AI itself, and then ask to highlight any key points that the client mentioned. So especially it's really good for, I would say, overall any type of client meeting, but especially like first-time clients that you're trying to like convert or take on, that I found that it highlights things that we might not be aware of that speaks to the client. So it fits in nicely with the process of like when you send the client feedback, like their client engagement letter or their proposal, and you use their wording, then it relates more and it speaks to them. So we've been using that for a lot of like our new clients we've been taking on board, and it's been working quite nicely as well. But yeah, I use Fathom in combination with ChatGPT Plus.
Okay, great, thanks. Brian, Chandler?
Sorry, Russell, can you use Fathom in face-to-face meetings or only online?
Yeah, so With face-to-face, I've tried it now and I'm still practicing it with like 1 or 2 clients that I've got coming up. But Fathom, what I've worked out is like you can either play it off your laptop, or if it's not like versatile in that matter, because it's mainly for online. The other option that I see that you can do is like, and obviously you notify the client, you tell them why you're doing it. Just like you can just use your smartphone and say, look, I'm just going to record this conversation in case I miss anything, the consent, and then you can upload that to Fathom AI to convert it into notes or a summary.
Cool. Brian?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add to what Russell said there. I don't feed it into ChatGPT because I mean, you can do that, but what I would then do is anonymize the transcript. So I would take the transcript, you can easily copy it, put it on a Word document, and then replace all. So if my client is Dirk Groeneveld, I would replace all with John Smith, and the company name, I would replace all with company XYZ. But what I do is in Fathom and AI, it's got its own engine, like, you know, a search engine type of thing. You can speak to it, its own GPT, and all you do is you ask it questions like, for example, what is the most important to this client, you know, about money, or what is their main pain point, and then it will go and analyze it and say, they mentioned this like 20 times, so they mentioned that 5 or 4 times, so this is probably the main pain point. And then, you know, we listen, we take notes, and I still do take some notes because I don't want to get blunt. You know, I still want to have the skill of understanding what's important and writing it down. Also, I think that there is value in a client seeing you actually take some notes and not just kind of staring into the camera. But to ask questions is quite handy because it just helps me uplift the most important issues, bring it to the surface, and then I position that back to the client when I pitch for business. And then secondly, you can also ask the cool things like, if you're meeting with your ideal client, you're like ideal client, like the client you wish you could clone 100 times. What you can do is you can have a good planning meeting with them and say, what are the top 3 problems we solved or we helped solve in this meeting? What are the top 3 issues we discussed? And you can even go back to the first time they ever spoke to you on a prospect call, and you can ask them the same thing. Now what you've got is a lot of content. And so you've got a lot of topics to discuss in content. And then also it drafts content for you. So you can say, produce 3 LinkedIn posts on the top 3 things you just discussed now, or 3 separate LinkedIn posts on the top 3 things, and you can give it a style guide. You can say, I don't use these words, I use these words. I'm a financial planner. Keep that in mind. This is my ideal client. And so it can draft posts for you, just like ChatGPT, and then you can copy that and edit it and post it. So that's what I like about it. It's got all that information there, and it's able to start turning it into valuable resources for you and not just storing recordings. The other thing with Fathom is that it's secure. They don't share it, the data. They don't use it to train language models. And it complies with the Euro GRPR, whatever it's called, standards. So it kind of ticks all those boxes. Whereas a couple of the other ones I tried out, they didn't, their T's and C's, I couldn't see that listed. And for that reason, I couldn't trust it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a minefield there, which I'm sure is just going to continue. Because it's obviously a space where a lot of these techies see a lot of opportunity. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys do too. I get emails almost daily on people wanting to show us what you've got. Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting, but I also think what's really important is that we got to remember to keep the main thing, you know, and that is that we find that we can get very fancy with all this stuff, but I think often what can happen is we think it's important because in our world we can see the difference it can make, but we got to remember that the clients out there that we deal with, like, what do they want? They want to know that they're going to be okay, and they want to be able to trust us and have someone they can confide in and all that. So I think we must be careful that we never lose sight of like what the main thing really is here. So yeah, Shannon, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question for the guys who use Firefly. Does it work in a face-to-face situation, or is it only online?
Sorry, I was just looking for unmute. Yeah, you can use it face to face. You can unmute. You can download the app rather, and then you can just put it on your phone, and you can record in a face to face meeting.
Tom should be here quite soon. How quickly is this year gone by, guys? End of July already.
Frightening.
Yeah.
Especially at our age, Dirk.
Yeah. Yeah, still haven't learned how to surf. It's too cold at the moment. Still think it's a good idea that we try and have a physical get together sometime towards the end of the year. Anyone wanting to do a road trip down to the Eastern Cape? Okay, we'll look at it. Brian, do you still come down here often? I know you're Foxy, eh?
No, I don't go in the Eastern Cape at all. But I'm happy to go down there. I've got family there.
I'm coming down in like 3 weeks. I can't wait.
Are you? Cool. You're leaving the big smoke.
Yeah, Humewood's having their over 50 versus under 50s tournament, so I'm coming down for it.
Okay. Well, you should come get a game at St. Francis. Just make sure you've got lots of balls.
I'd love to. Definitely have enough balls.
Okay. All right. Good. Oh, well, let me know. Definitely. Maybe get Alex out here as well, and we can have a game. Okay.
Yeah, I'm keen.
I'm there in the week of the 17th of August. And I'll be there for a whole week, so I'd love to come through for a day.
Okay. 17th. Yeah, I'm here.
17th, Bill.
17th, I think. 7th, I've got my 40-year school reunion. That's how old I am. Let's see who's still alive.
You don't look a day older than 60, Dirk. Don't worry.
Yeah, thanks. Bugger.
I had my 40th last year.
Oh, wow.
Very
Okay.
scary. Yeah.
All right.
Very scary.
Okay, here's Tom. Let me in. This room is very full. It's slow in letting him in. Hey, Tommy in.
Hi, Dirk. Yes, can you hear me all okay?
Yeah, you well?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good, man. We've been online for half an hour, so I've given the guys a bit of a brief. But yeah, thanks for joining us. I know it's a bit early over there. Yeah, and let me hand over to you.
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, it is slightly early. It's an hour before, I guess, our usual start time. So I haven't had my coffee yet. So please do forgive me if I'm a bit slow to start off. But yes, thanks a lot for obviously the chance to come and speak to everybody today. Hopefully, I can, I guess, shed the light on what is a big topic right now in the advice profession, but across every profession across the world at the moment, and hopefully break it down for everybody a bit. So let me share my screen. I guess we're going to usually on Google Meet as well, so I've got the additional challenge of navigating Teams at the same time. Cool. Hopefully you should all be able to see that. But just to give you a bit of background on myself, I'm sure Dirk's given me a glowing review, but my name is Tom. I'm from Saturn AI. We work with over 425, coming to 450 firms in the UK at this moment in time in implementing AI within their operations across the back office and beyond. We've been around for around 20 months now. So as you can see here, we were a part of Y Combinator recently, which took us over to San Francisco in the US. Y Combinator being one of the fastest or biggest tech accelerator startups in the country. And that allowed us to kind of build connections and relationships and gain investment from a lot of mutual investors and relations with the likes of OpenAI, Airbnb, Stripe, Monzo. And of course, what that's really allowed us to do is really just gain a bit of insight into everything going on. And there's a lot going on in the AI world right now. So being able to kind of digest that is obviously particularly important. In terms of the firms we work with, you'll see here we are kind of, I guess, the most trusted provider in the UK. So we get to work with lots and lots of firms on understanding kind of how their processes work, how they're viewing AI as a project, how they're viewing AI as a change, as a shift, and then actually kind of those more day-to-day tangible implementations of what do the operations look like, how can we obviously effectively implement with a firm, whether that's a one-man band or
Sorry, Tom, just breaking up a bit there.
advisors across it.
Sorry, Tom, we just lost you. Sorry, Tom, we just lost you for a bit there.
There, can you hear me okay now?
No, I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, apologies about that. Always good to have some tech issues when you're talking about tech, isn't it? Yes, so the main like I say, conversation that I want to kind of have today and break everything down is kind of looking at, I guess, from a values standpoint, how we're kind of driving AI into firms, what that's looking like, and like I say, trying to break that down, because there is a lot of hype, there's a lot of misconception that goes on around AI. If you look at kind of the last 2 years from, I guess, a macro level, you're looking at kind of the change in hiring coming out of college or universities. You're looking at kind of the waves of layoffs going on. And yes, there's obviously maybe a shift of companies and organizations looking to get less people to do the same amount of work. I think a lot of that is also recalibrating post-COVID as well. But what we find is very much at this moment in time, there is this kind of gap that people are bridging. There's a gap that we're having to continuously bridge, where we're having to kind of manage expectations compared to AI's actual capabilities. That's kind of where we focus the conversation. We've very much focused on what is AI able to do now? What should AI be doing now? And not get too distracted by what could be coming in 5, 10, 20 years, because that is an endless pit. But you'll see here, the way we kind of begin this conversation with firms, and we kind of break that down into a few main points. So the first point is kind of, like I say, that kind of ethical use of AI. How are we actually using AI to augment individuals within firms? So there's a big difference between automation and augmentation. So when we look at this, and we'll break it down a bit more into kind of a spectrum way of thinking in a minute, but AI is still very limited in what it can do when we just say, go do this. It's not something that AI isn't in a position where it can just go and do all our work for us at this moment in time. It's very much in a position where we're having to kind of oversee AI. Are we using it right? Are we implementing it correctly? Are we actually using this to augment or enhance the work we're doing as individuals? A big case after that is then looking at managing risk. So a lot of people will be aware, but AI is purely dependent on data. So AI data is context, just like to us, we learn from memory. AI also needs to learn through familiarizing itself or remembering and context as it goes along. Ensuring that as a firm, you're capturing really high quality data is something that firms haven't been doing for a long time, if ever. So this is also kind of an adoption, a shift, where we're having to work with firms to understand, okay, how are you now capturing this data coming into the firm? How are you ensuring that all that kind of recent relevant information coming from the client, coming from third-party providers, is coming into the back office? And if you are using an AI system in the background that has really high integrity, really strong information around everything it needs to know, if it doesn't have that, you're never going to be able to use AI effectively. There'll be way too many hallucinations. You won't be able to feed it with the correct data. And especially if you're going into any kind of generative work, if you're looking to generate documents or things along those lines, the context going in isn't there, then the context coming out is definitely not going to be there. We also look at kind of things from a strategic lens. So in terms of what tasks is AI ready to automate? And for that, we can kind of break it down into a cross section. So if we kind of have 4 quadrants, we kind of have a top right quadrant of things that AI is good at and things that AI that people want to be automated. And then we have a bottom right quadrant where things AI is good at, but people don't want to be automated. There's obviously the other 2 where AI just quite simply isn't there yet. That's another conversation that we end up having a lot of times, especially when we're working with firms, is the capability of AI to kind of drive efficiency in a process is there, but do firms actually want that embedded? A lot of people don't. People are still in the position where we don't want to kind of shift too much from a people and process perspective to accommodate for AI. Some people are in a position where they obviously are thinking very AI minded. The way we see that is very much focusing kind of through people, process, and tech. So you can't have alignment of all 3, then whatever you're trying to implement probably isn't going to work. So ensuring that the kind of adoption and the commitment to adoption is there from the people and process is going to be equally important as getting the best tech on board as you move forward. So in terms of learning outcomes, say a few things we're kind of focusing on, very much looking at also how we can mitigate risk throughout this process. We are dealing with obviously highly confidential, very personal client information in the industry. So it's equally important, obviously, from a data, from a security perspective, that's being addressed as we go as well. And that's kind of reflective. And if we get a chance in a bit, I'm sure I'll just be able to walk you through the system for 5 minutes. But you'll see kind of as we go, ensuring that everything is obviously end-to-end encrypted, all compliant to local regulations regarding data. That's so. The quote that we kind of feel kind of underpins everything we talk about is very much this, and that the true potential of AI lies in its ability to amplify human creativity and ingenuity. Like you touched on, when we look at AI kind of automating simple tasks, it's good, it drives productivity, it drives efficiency. We also have to be very frank when we have the conversation around job security. There is obviously going to be tasks and roles where AI will be able to come in and do these simple jobs very, very easily. It will also be able to move into doing hard jobs relatively easily. And I think there's a quote around people that don't use AI won't be replaced, or it's the people that use AI will replace people that don't. Quite frankly, I don't think that's very accurate. I think AI at the end of the day is going to be able to automate what it can. If it's a simple task and AI can do it effectively, then it's going to do it. But what that then allows us to do is then that kind of provides us with time to be able to be proactive, to understand, okay, well, if AI can automate this simple task, then on the scale of 1 to 5, how much oversight do we need? How much do we need to ensure we're in the loop to ensure this remains effective, to actually ensure this increases the quality of work being done? There's nothing to say that AI can't begin automating a task with the human in the background, kind of reviewing it. And then when it finishes the generation, you can then enhance and edit. We see this a lot with clients, especially working around kind of meeting notes and file notes. Clients will use the system to automate the capturing of their meetings, but then post-meeting, they'll edit and enhance the documents. Then what actually comes off the back of it is they've spent 20 minutes rather than an hour and a half crafting a really high level or high detailed document around the client meeting that reflects every kind of facet of that conversation in a much shorter time than they would have had to have done that previously from scratch. Same said for kind of everything across the board. We kind of break it down into I guess, a 5-point spectrum. 1 being tasks that can be just automated and the human doesn't need intervention. So you can look at data extraction. So if you're bringing a third-party provided document, you want that data pulled from a really long PDF, so it's 10, 12, 13 pages long. You want that data pulled into a single page, very easily done by AI. A human doesn't need to touch it. If you're in a position where you want to go through a research piece, you want to start going through research analysis, that's going to be a combination of the AI pulling that data and obviously the human overseeing it and then going through the research process. Then on the other end of that spectrum, you've got the actual kind of face-to-face communication where we never see kind of AI coming into play. That's obviously where we see kind of the value proposition for clients that's going to be kind of continuously enhanced
and the importance and kind of the value that advisors are going to be delivered is going to be very much underpinned on their ability to handle those relationships, to spend more time with clients, to answer more questions, to have more touch points. And really, when we talk about augmentation so much, that's what it allows us to do. So from a bit more of a technical perspective, like I say, trying to break, I guess, AI down a bit so you can get to what it actually is doing right now. Where we, and not just us, but kind of across the board and in business and society at this moment, from an organizational perspective, where the real value of AI is coming in is actually in its infrastructure. It's in, if you begin thinking of AI as more than electricity rather than a tool, there was obviously a mass commoditization of AI tools very quickly. People obviously see an opportunity in tasks, in workflows to very quickly drive productivity, to commoditize a product, to sell a product. But from an infrastructural perspective, where AI can be most powerful for firms, for organizations, from businesses, is in the back office, and seeing it as almost like a current of a flow of electricity that kind of flows through the back office from data coming in. In our case, that could be that first client meeting, to obviously completing that review cycle for that client that year. What that then allows us to do is kind of bring everything together. So you can see previously here, this kind of graphic will just kind of demonstrate how across all these processes, so we've got our internal meetings, we've got our external comms, we've got our client meetings, we've got our reports, we've got our documents, and through kind of cloud-based or traditional CRMs, they've just been sat and scattered everywhere. CRMs at this point in time are very much becoming kind of old legacy filing cabinets of just information, which as a business, you can't particularly leverage. The way AI is kind of changing that, and the way organizations are really like leveraging that for their benefit, is to actually let AI kind of flow across. So it's ensuring that they're capturing high quality data, and then ensuring that that data remains intact and flows consistently from start of the client relationship all the way through. And at any point throughout that process, people have accessibility to that information, you have transparency, and you have high quality context. You can then leverage it. If you want to take some information regarding the client and generate a document with it, you know that's there, and you can switch that on, you can generate that document. If you haven't got that going, if you haven't got that flowing through the firm, then you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to have to go through an adoption process of capturing that information. Again, data integrity will come up very often, and like we touched on, it's because it's integral to what we get out. We will only get out what we put in. The way we begin working with all firms, and this is a non-negotiable for us when we work with firms, is we begin at the client meeting. We begin looking at data inputs. That's how important this is. So we wouldn't work with a firm if the firm came to us and just said, we want to just generate letters, we just want to generate documents, reports. We don't want to capture any information around meetings. We don't want to capture any third-party information. Then, quite frankly, we just wouldn't work with the firm, because for our eyes, that isn't kind of sustainable approach to driving AI across the firm. We need to ensure that what we are getting is really high integrity data, because if the data isn't accurate, then that's obviously going to reflect in what's being produced. And obviously from a compliance and regulator standpoint, that's obviously not going to run. From a client delivery perspective, also, that's just going to decrease the quality being delivered to clients. It's also big in risk mitigation. So when we look at mitigation strategies, there's obviously firstly and foremostly ensuring that we are capturing high integrity information, but B, it's also how are things designed? How are we implementing AI? Yes, it's a very powerful tool. Yes, it can do quite impressive things, but it's not magic. It isn't at this moment in time. I don't think it will be for the foreseeable future anyway, either. So what's important is when you are using AI systems, and this goes for everything, not just advice related, but anything in your personal life as well and other professions, ensuring that the system is designed with the human or the professional in the loop is going to be incredibly important. Like we touched on earlier, when people kind of creating meeting notes or file notes now, they're not just kind of able to automate that process as quickly as possible. Speed is rarely the metric, just out and out speed. But what we can do is ensure that the quality is enhanced. So the combination of the automation and then the focus or the kind of validation of the human is going to be most important for that. So yeah, just kind of a use case. So just an example of a firm that we work with here in the UK. So here, NWA Wealth, multiple advisor firm. So their issue was very much a compliance-driven one. And this is where we can also see the variety in use cases for AI at this moment in time. So the firm had an issue with kind of standardizing compliance across the board. So what we're able to do is obviously look at that firm, look at how all the different advisors are capturing information from their client meetings, how all the different advisors then communicating that back to the support team, because that communication piece is one that can be very much enhanced as well. When we look at quality of information coming in, if we can improve the quality of information flowing in, we can also improve the quality of information being handed over. So for big advice teams, if there's lots of advisors working with lots of maybe limited support staff, what we can also do is ensure that not only are they capturing quality information from a compliance standpoint, from a quality of information standpoint, but that they're also able to hand that over to the rest of the team. So then you've got kind of the underlayer of the admin support, of the power planners, of the technical team being able to get accessible high quality information from the advisors to then help support the client's journey. But then also from above that as well, from a management perspective, you can standardize those processes. You can have oversight of the quality of information those advisors are capturing. You can have oversight of kind of how efficient, how effective are those advisors being, and you can ensure from a compliance angle, are we documenting everything? Are we ensuring that's kind of kept and logged as we move forward? When we kind of start working with firms, we strongly encourage them to obviously speak to everybody. There are a couple of other AI providers in the UK. There's obviously lots of AI tools out there, and selecting an AI partner is going to be the kind of most important piece of embedding AI in the firm to begin with. Like I said, the thing that's going to have the most impact is going to be the alignment of people, process, and technology. You can have the best piece of technology in the world, but if the people and process within the business don't align to that, then it's going to be very hard to implement it. The way we kind of begin those conversations with firms is looking at strategic alignment. So ensuring that as a firm, understanding the business needs of the firm, understanding the trajectory the firm's on, understanding what the priorities are for the firm and objectives, whether that's around growth, revenue, etc., and ensuring that obviously the AI implementation timeline is going to align with that. Without that, obviously there isn't going to be any vision compatibility between where the firm wants to get to and also what we're building, because we've got to be very transparent, very frank with people as well, that this is a very, very, very fast moving industry. AI is, I don't know how kind of up to date people stay with AI in this group at the moment, but if you could kind of have daily reminders, daily news on around AI, and every day you're going to have a very, very extensive piece of news to wake up to, because there is movements every day. A week is a year is a decade. Things are moving very fast. So from our perspective, we obviously need to be very transparent with firms around what we're building, why we're building it, why we're going in that direction. And if there's not an alignment there, then obviously that is going to cause friction further down the line. So transparency early on is going to be most important. Like you touched on as well, from a technical and security kind of framework or foundation, compliance is obviously going to be incredibly important as well. Data protection incredibly important, and integrations as well. As much as we like to joke that CRMs aren't our old filing cabinets, they're very important information in them. So obviously having integration and allowing data to flow across back office current sources of information is very important. So here in the UK, we will integrate with a lot of CRMs. We are beginning to work with firms in South Africa now, and obviously we're exploring that. And kind of understanding what that landscape looks like there and how we can obviously begin building things in place there. And then from a technical standpoint, in terms of compliance and data protection, like we touched on earlier, we're going to ensure obviously whatever region we're working in, we obviously have the highest data protection standards. That's the case here in the UK. And that will be the case kind of wherever we work across the board. In terms of implementation, even though from a pilot perspective, from a, I guess, a bigger picture perspective, people will now argue that pilots are over, in terms of pilots are now in a position where firms don't want to test things anymore, you want to use things. That being said, pilots are still very important for the implementation process. What pilots allow us to do is essentially just work closely with firms to ensure that things are embedded seamlessly, to ensure if you are working with multiple advisors, multiple support teams, that everybody's on the same page. So like I say, that alignment is going to be so important in those early days moving forward. And then equally important is obviously ongoing partnership. Like we say, things are moving very fast in AI. If you're not working with a partner or a tool, a provider, where you're going to have kind of responsive support, where you're going to have kind of adaptability to change, and where you also have an exit strategy, then that's going to cause a lot of trouble further down the line. There's not much emphasis on exit strategies where there really should be. Like I say, if data is obviously very much a currency now for firms, you need to ensure that you have accessibility and transparency to that data at all times. That includes for when and if you leave that provider or partner. So I guess to just summarize all that, and I know it's a lot of information, and I always try and keep these relatively short because that is AI in a nutshell, a lot of information all at once. But like I say, to break things down from, I guess, a key takeaway perspective, when looking at implementing AI, boil it down to kind of what's going on now. There's a lot to be distracted with. There's a lot going on, things are moving quickly, but you can boil it down to kind of what are our short-term tactical wins? What can we implement right now? What's going to be effective right now? And then what are we building towards? Slightly touched on as well, as much as people have kind of end objectives, like we work with firms whose objectives very much are to kind of have an end-to-end process in place where they have one infrastructure driven by AI overseeing all client journeys with the advisor. That includes generating review letters, suitability reports, and capturing client meetings. To just drop that all at once is going to be a lot and not necessarily particularly sustainable. So look at how you can kind of get immediate short-term tactical wins and then build on that to kind of a longer-term strategic play. That will help you kind of reduce a lot of the uncertainty around what AI is. And then from a risk management perspective, like I say, start with data. Ensure that obviously what data you're capturing really high quality information. And then that's going to be reflective in your processes moving forward internally. And then from there, just think about obviously how we're embedding AI. Make sure, let's say, the human is in the loop. The key for kind of successful AI is it doing better, not just doing it quicker or faster, but actually focusing on better outcomes. So obviously at the end of the day, the outcome is going to be delivered to the client. It's going to be reflective in that. And I think also kind of from a long-term implementation perspective, that's where we're going to see success, because it's also going to buy firms time to be proactive. So if we are saving, say, 20% of our time we're getting back a week because we are driving efficiency, but also improving the quality of work being delivered to clients or the amount of touch points we're having with clients. That also provides us with 20% of that time back to then be proactive and understand how we want to kind of, I guess, reinvest those resources we get back. What does that look like from a long-term perspective of AI now in the back office? If we are going to be more efficient, how can we increase the value delivered to clients from, is that having more touch points with clients? Is that spending longer with clients? Is that I don't know, delivering another document a year to clients? There's lots of obviously questions that firms can answer that buying time to be proactive to will be the best way to do that. I know that's a fair amount of information, so I will stop talking. I'm sure obviously if you have any questions, happy to answer any.
Thanks, Tom. Are you able to give us a kind of a bit of a demo on how it works? I think people would be interested in that as well.
Yeah, no,
some
absolutely.
Some of the key features and how practically how we utilize it. Yeah,
no, definitely. Equally happy as well. Should anybody want to jump on a call again anytime, please do reach out to me. Happy to kind of go through everything with people in a bit more depth and what that could look like for firms specifically. Like I touched on, have started working with a few firms in South Africa, and we're really hoping that will continue as well. But yeah, let me share my screen. Teams really does throw me off. I'm so used to Google Meet. Right, should all be able to see that okay. And I guess just to give you a bit of, I guess, insight into how we've built and why we've built the way we have, goes kind of back to, I guess, a slide we touched on earlier around electricity, around where's the value in AI from an organizational perspective. It's very easy to build a tool, I'll be completely honest. It's not that hard for anybody, even with limited technical knowledge, to build a tool to help them with the task, especially as kind of that accessibility to that technology will increase as well as we go over the next couple of years. At the end of the day, though, especially for firms, and say firms working where it's about obviously the quality being delivered to clients, whilst obviously being overseen by a regulator, where the real kind of value lies in AI in the back office in the system is in can this flow from kind of start to finish of that client journey, of that workflow, can that align from meeting to document being generated? So that's how we've built the system. We've begun working with firms purely on meeting capturing. Sure, lots of you have probably used co-pilots, fireflies, lots of apps out there that can capture meetings now. Zoom AI, I think, do it. Obviously, first of all, what's really important is it should be financial specific, because obviously you're capturing that context that needs to be highly accurate. But then second of all, let's say, how's that flowing into that next workflow? How is that increasing your accessibility to that information? So you'll see here, and I'll just give you a bit of a whistle stop rather than obviously walking you through an end-to-end demonstration. But when you first log on, so like on the homepage, this is very much all around capturing that meeting. So you'll see we'll have kind of calendar integrated on the right-hand side. We'll have all our pending meeting notes from meetings we've just taken that we haven't processed yet on the left. If I come into clients, let's open our, you see the Ross family here. So what will happen is, I'll open up this meeting note here, is the system after capturing the meeting, so it can be online, that can be in person, the system's going to capture the meeting with the clients. That'll be 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours long. Nobody's broken the time limit on the system yet. So if you want to try, feel free. But what will happen is the system will essentially take that conversation and immediately produce us a meeting note here. So the meeting note will be kind of consistent of just a summary of those key points discussed. And then we'll have like a hard fact breakdown around the client's kind of goals, objectives, income, assets, expenditures, liabilities, etc. And then we'll also come into kind of changing circumstances and soft facts. This will also be built out. So I'll kind of skip to the end here, but what you'll be provided with during the review process is a more comprehensive template, with also prompts for stuff that the system may not have felt has been discussed too deeply, but you can then build off the back of it, like I say. So you can take those 5 minutes rather than spending 30 minutes or an hour, take 5 minutes to kind of create a really kind of comprehensive document and standardize that process coming out the back of information. I lazily skipped it for this one. I was just demonstrating it. But you'll see here, soft facts will also be built out. So the more you discuss there, that'll be built out. If I open up the transcript, this is only a 10-minute conversation. Obviously, if that's 1 hour, 2 hours, this would be a lot bigger with that kind of relationship building information. You'll see as well here, any change in client's risk, any change in the client's capacity for loss, for those important circumstance issues. That context will be pulled through, and it will also be supported by the use of client's own words. So again, one thing AI is very good at is obviously extracting and documenting information, especially changing audio to text. That's obviously from not only a proof of understanding to the client, if you include any letters or any follow-up emails, but equally from a compliance standpoint. We're aware of the regulator in South Africa is obviously slightly different to the FCA here. The FCA here is massive on quotes. One of the biggest pain points for advisors is capturing clients' own words, because it's just like, well, I'm in a meeting with my client. Why am I going to sit here and just ask them to repeat what they just said? That was perfect. Please repeat that. Let me quote that for you and write that down. Obviously, now what we can do is actually capture that as they go. So obviously the first objective, again, even though we talk so much about automation and augmentation, is actually simply just being able to have a conversation with another human being and not have to think about, obviously, I have to take that down, I have to note that, I have to write that down. And that's obviously always really nice to hear. There is also a vulnerability section, so that will all be built out as well in terms of vulnerabilities. So if there is any notice vulnerabilities, that will also be noticed. But essentially, what that will do is each meeting you take, so you'll see here, it could be an onboarding meeting, could be a review meeting, could be a phone call, any kind of touch point with the client can be captured. So then that will create this kind of chronological timeline. So anybody here can kind of jump in, see that meeting note, see what happened. We also have it kind of broken down in an overview snapshot here. So you can see, you can come into, okay, what's the summary? So this could be the support team. This could be the technical team needing a bit of insight into what the advisor recently discussed with their client. And you can jump in here and get a snapshot into that. Same for hard facts, soft facts, and vulnerabilities. See as well from the document side, like you touched on, in terms of storage, the system does have kind of an unlimited secure storage as well. So those capabilities of a traditional CRM are built in as well. So obviously you can kind of store and have everything in that same space. So you're not having to go from A to B to C to have 12 different tools within your tech stack, one for storage, one for X, one for Y, one for Z, but instead obviously actually bring that together and allow that kind of electricity to be driven throughout the one system. You'll also see from a tasks component here, what will also happen in the review process post-caption meeting is the system will also automate any action points. So you can see here an action point was that I agreed with the client. I'll discuss their inheritance tax planning strategies. From there, I can assign that to anybody within the team. So like I say, equally important, everybody within the firm or within the network, within the group will have access to the system here. So everybody will be able to assign things to people. Everybody have transparency over what happened. And from a permission basis, we can obviously play around with that. So we work with networks with, like I say, hundreds and thousands of advisors. Those management teams, those compliance teams want to see into everything. They want those analytics, they want that oversight, they want those dashboards. So we can provide that to them. Equally, for the technical teams, the support teams, we can provide them specific access to just the advisor they work with or the couple of advisors they work with, and they can see that information. You'll see then, so what that's basically doing is we see that as like obviously capturing that kind of high quality core of client information. Once we have that, and that's going to be continuously evolving. So obviously each meeting we take, each touch point, that's going to update, that's going to become more and more kind of rich in the quality of information it has. We can then come into things like letters. So you'll see here, and like I said, as we go, we're aware that processes may look slightly different. And that's obviously what we're very much working with advisors in the region at the moment on to understand and to see how we can kind of build moving forward for the region. But here, obviously, letters and reports are huge for UK firms delivering to clients. So the big, I guess, use case here is kind of being able to flow from taking that client meeting, capturing those really kind of high quality meeting notes and flow straight into the generation of the letter. So you'll see here, I'll just open one up done previously. But what this will generate here is essentially a fully generated letter. So I think this is a no change annual review report for a client of ours. And so we can embed the firm's kind of style, style, branding and tone into the letter. And then from a back end perspective, we can actually kind of take care of all compliance, regulation and policy matters. So we do actually have an internal team. In fact, we went through an acquisition a couple of months ago now of, I guess, a legacy report writing compliance technology company. They're named ATEB Suitability. And we acquired them not for the tech, because the tech was quite dated, but for the team behind the tech, because what they are is they're experts in compliance, they're experts in policy, and they're experts in templating. So the way we work with firms on letters now is we'll understand the firm's kind of style and tone from their letter. We'll embed that into the system. The team here will then be able to ensure that all letters the firm generates are fully compliant and fully up to date with any policy updates. And so obviously from a firm side, all the firm has to worry about is actually kind of capturing really high quality information, understanding the client situation, and then generating the letter. Same process with the meeting review flow. You can then generate the letter in, let's say, 5 minutes, but then off the back of those 5 minutes, the firm can then spend 10 minutes going into the letter if they want to add any enhancements, amend anything. And obviously that process then comes down for one group we work with, I think around 190 advisors across the group. That's come down from kind of what was a multiple week. It would take them usually 3 weeks off the back of a client meeting to get a review letter out to clients. They can now get that done in 30 minutes. And that's not to say that speed is the primary objective, because it's not. Obviously quality is still going to be the primary objective, but obviously having the ability and the tools to be able to utilize that and get that review letter out and shorten that cycle is obviously going to be a win-win across the board. And how firms want to utilize that is actually down to them. You'll see here as well, a big focus, and this will continue, as I said, the way we're going to build is going to continue in this manner, is we're going to bring in kind of all the toolkits, all the workflows that we deem necessary for the advice process into this one system. So again, you can see here the LOA process. So the LOA process here is very much around kind of collecting that third-party provider information. So you can see here what I've done is I've uploaded a pension statement from Aviva into the system here. What it's done is taken that statement, so that 13 pages, and it's immediately extracted that down into each individual plan or policy here. So you can see there's 4 plans within that statement. I can then open that up, and you'll see.
Sorry, Tom. What is LOA? Just the abbreviation. I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So LOA within within the UK is letter of authority. What that essentially is is the letter.
Understood.
Yeah. So
it's similar to.
It's the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very similar process. That's obviously just the process of actually reaching out to the provider to get the information on behalf of the client. What will happen, and I'm not sure how similar this is, but what will happen is typically the provider will then send a letter with around 60% of the relevant information you need regarding the client's circumstances. So what firms will then do is bring that into the system, extract that into these data fields here, so they can actually kind of see what was in the letter. So you can hit the citations, jump up and down to see where that is within the letter here. And then you can hit this email banner and you can immediately send this email to providers to chase the missing information. So if you do need to know bid offer, tax relief method, allocation rate, if you hit the email banner and that's missing, the system can then send this email straight out to the provider where we'll have the directory built in, and it can outline all the missing information. So you can begin going through that chasing process. Then here you can begin exporting these documents together. So if you wanted to export all that information as a CSV, you can export those CSV files and actually go through that research process, go through the analysis of all the different documentation there, and kind of just, I guess, streamline that process, which is also important from an integration standpoint. I guess the next priority or the next focus for us over the next 2 to 3 months is integrations, and is bringing in this third-party information into the system to ensure that advisors have access to that within the system as well. So you're not having to go to external resources to get investment information all the time. We're in conversations, and to be honest, we've had to hold a lot of conversations at arm's length for a long time, whilst we've obviously focused on building the system as quickly as possible and as sustainably as possible. But we're now in a position where we're having those conversations with a lot of providers around how we can bring investment data into the system, how that can be there readily available for advisors. And there's some really exciting conversations we're having where we're hoping that will be reflected in the system in a very short amount of time. But I know that's kind of a fairly, like I say, just being conscious of time, just kind of jumping through everything there. But like I say, more than happy to sit down with anybody. I'm sure Dirk will be able to pass on my contact details after this. Like I say, always happy to chat in a bit more detail, and especially to understand the firm's position and how the system can be most reflective of that.
Tom, those documents, can it read any kind of a document, or must it be a PDF or?
Yeah, so ideally PDF for any text-based document. So if you are scanning, you can scan letters in, but anything text-based, the system will have to read.
Okay.
Tom, how would it work in terms of pricing? Do you do pricing per individual, per organization? Obviously, it's probably more expensive for one person as opposed to a network of 200 advisors, as an example.
Yeah, so it will completely depends. So the way we work with firms across the board is on kind of a firm by firm basis. To give you a bit of understanding, kind of baseline price. So for one advisor, so if it's a single advisor firm, to use the meeting intelligence system, which is kind of that first flow of capturing client meetings, we'll start working with advisors on a single advisor pricing there. But then when we kind of move into the system and kind of obviously encompass all workflows across the client meeting, letter generation, LOA extraction, data gathering, all those different things, what we'll do is we'll just work with the firm to understand obviously to what extent they want to use the system, how many obviously members of staff or team are accessing the system, and then reflect that in pricing. So that obviously, what's not going to happen is we're not going to provide a single advisor firm with the same pricing structure as a 200. So yeah, we'll completely work with the firm on that basis.
Thanks, Tom. Mel?
Thanks, Tom, for that. I just wanted two questions. The first question is, does that inbox replace your Outlook that you're working on? And the second question is, do you have a South African version?
So the inbox in the system is for kind of notifications within the system only, so that won't kind of replace external communications. What we can do, so we do have a lot of kind of email features. What they will be is they'll be integrated into your Outlook. So you'll have the ability, so for example, after taking the client meeting, you'll produce your meeting note, and you'll also produce a follow-up email. So the follow-up email is a box that essentially you can edit, and it will learn from how you edit it, and you can kind of create your own crafted follow-up emails you can then send straight out to all clients. When you hit open in Outlook on that, that will essentially integrate with your Outlook account, take you to Outlook, and you can send it straight out from there. The inbox within the system on the left-hand side there will be for all notifications regarding the completion of meetings, any comments on any documents left by any of your team, and the assignment of tasks to teams. So at the moment, that task system is going to be automated straight off the back of client meetings. To be honest, we weren't planning on rolling out the task management system yet. We were, I guess, pressured slightly in a good way by firms to get that out earlier, purely because they weren't particularly happy with their workflows or tasks they were triggering within their CRM systems. What we will be developing that task management system into is a full-fledged task management system across the firm's operations. So at the moment, that is only, like say, automated action points from meetings. But over the next kind of few weeks or couple of months, that will then become, I don't know if you use kind of Monday or Trello or kind of those actually specialized general task management systems, will be encompassing that within the system itself as well. And then on South Africa specifics, like I said, we've currently just started working with our first few South African firms. So we're very much in the process of understanding what that will look like. And to be completely honest with you, from our side, obviously, we would love to work with the region as a whole. We'd love to continuously working with firms across the region. And the more we can understand what that will look like, the better we'll be able to obviously, A, quite frankly, put a case together internally for us to obviously assign the resources to building that, and B, actually be able to build it in the right way. So obviously, we're going to want to actually understand what do firms want across the region. So we're speaking with some great people and great firms already around that. And would love to obviously encourage that conversation across everybody. But yeah, so we can actually understand obviously what that looks like and how we can build it.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon?
Hi, Tom. Tom, in your example, you were mentioning telephone conversations. Does Saturn AI transcribe directly from telephone conversations?
Not directly, so there's a few ways we can do it. So for iPhones and for some smartphones where you're able to download the file of the recording. So not sure if you use an iPhone or if you use a smartphone where you're aware that has that capability. But with some phones, you can now just download the recordings of phone conversations. That makes it quite easy. Because you can just simply download the file and you can upload the file into the Saturn system. So there's a box on the home page where you can upload a new note. That basically means upload file. So if you can download the MP3 and then upload it into that will then process it just like it was captured on the system. Alternatively, if you're using landlines or kind of any call systems that don't have the ability to download files, I guess there is kind of the old school short-term solution for the time being, where what we use for in-person meetings isn't an app. So if you're face-to-face with a client, you just open up the app, put your phone down on the table, that will capture the conversation. You could do the same theoretically for a landline if you're using that in your office, and that's obviously on speaker. You can just pop the phone next to the phone, and then that will capture kind of both voices the same way. But yeah, that's how we can kind of get those external as such captions into the system in the same degree of quality.
Good.
Thanks, Tom. Barry?
Thanks, Dirk. Appreciate it. So thanks for organising, Tom. Appreciate your input. Two things from me. One, just to comment. So if you end up being part of the team that implements in South Africa, can I encourage a pricing based on the cost of a beer in South Africa relative to a cost of a beer in the UK? That's just a suggestion. Then the reason for sticking my hand up is you guys integrate with other CRM systems. Well, how does that work? Because it looks like you've got quite a solid sort of CRM capability in its own right. So how do you link into Xplan as an example?
Yeah, no, yeah, good question as well, because that's a big conversation we're having at the moment. Obviously, like we kind of touched on it earlier, but like CRMs as a system, as a technology, kind of how is the landscape changing? I think AI is changing it massively. Obviously, we're the example in the advice profession. Traditionally, and it can sound harsh, but I think when we're dealing with things that are moving so quickly, you've got to be very accurate and honest around what things look like and how they act and how they work. CRMs are kind of traditionally just filing cabinets. Yes, they have obviously workflows embedded in them, but they are very clunky, and that's not necessarily me using our words. That's just words I hear every single day from advisors we work with. AI is providing us with, like I say, the kind of solution long term to fix that problem in terms of being an electricity that you can actually leverage and invest in. Like for the first time, technology can be seen as an investment because it actually returns you back time, drives efficiency, increases the quality of work being done. CRM systems aren't built to facilitate that. They're also not kind of, the teams aren't built to build that. Quite frankly, it's a different set of expertise. The way we see CRM systems, though, is obviously they are still very important because that information is still there. Can't pretend that information doesn't exist. We have to ensure that we are doing all we can to let that kind of flow seamlessly. That's obviously the big piece around data. For example, I'm sure you may be aware of IO IntelliFlow is a big one here in the UK. It costs people an arm and a leg just to get their data out of that system. That obviously isn't right. That isn't how systems should be monetized, and that isn't how they should work. But that being said, we still need to be understanding that there's important information there. In terms of the future moving forward, as you kind of pointed out, this has been our objective from the beginning. We started as just a meeting notes tool, quite frankly, to then build into the system. And this for us is a system that is going to be an operating system moving forward for financial advisors, for wealth management firms, that will act as a CRM. Like when you look at kind of what does the CRM now need moving forward, like I say, we already have a lot of those capabilities within there. There's a few more we're adding. I guess by the end of this year, I'd be, to be completely honest, like I say, if somebody by the end of this year didn't turn around and say this is a CRM or this is an operating system powered by AI, I'd be like, fair enough. Because like I say, that's kind of how we've built out. We've wanted to ensure that this is a system where the electricity is going to be able to flow from start to finish, and actually kind of power each workflow as we go along the way. So yeah, like I say, it's just the process of building that out. And also, if you ask a different firm that question, each firm will give you a different answer in terms of what does their CRM system do for them. So that's also the process of understanding. Obviously, I'm sure we'll have kind of an initial cohort of firms who will essentially kind of move away from Xplan, move away from IO, move away from traditional CRM systems and embed a system like Saturn. And then there'll be a second wave and a third wave. And each one of those waves will look different as to why people do it. And they all have different reasons. But it's a very exciting time, that's for sure. We're very excited by it. This is how we've been building from the beginning, like 20 months ago now. And like you say, like we're in a position now where this is actually reflective, and people are actually seeing that as a system. And so, yeah, very exciting times. And we'll continue to build on that, because that's the goal.
Thanks, Tom. Any other questions for Tom, guys? So, Tom, when I look at this, I mean, it's the third time I've been through this with you. There's a hell of a lot out there, and which, like for someone like me, but older, it can be quite scary. And you know, we've started down the process, but I think obviously each of us can build this the way that we want, and use the different features as we get more comfortable with it and embed it. Yeah, so that's what we're looking forward to doing in any case. Yeah, and then sorry, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, that's obviously at the end of the day, like every firm we work with approaches from a completely different angle. Like people see AI in terms of kind of all the news, everything, all the distractions as such, and then you kind of then have to channel that in terms of obviously how does that impact my business. And we have some firms, like I'll tell you that we're working with a firm at the moment. I think it's around 500 advisors across the UK, and their entire decision-making team around the project is their entire compliance team, because they're viewing this as an entire compliance kind of business case. You work with another firm who could be the same amount of advisors or even more advisors, and compliance are nowhere near it. In fact, compliance are against it because they see AI as a risk. It's just completely depends on the spectrum of where people sit, obviously what kind of access to information they have. And like I say, I kind of touched on multiple times earlier, also how you work with firms and how firms work with partners. Because that alignment of the people, process, and tech is going to be so important. Because obviously, like I say, from a firm perspective, it needs to make sure that those kind of pathways and processes do align. Because what we can then do is ensure that we can set those metrics, ensure that the system obviously works in that way, and then move forward on those grounds.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other questions? Tom. Okay, well, Tom, what I'll do is I'll share your email on the group, on the WhatsApp group, and I'm sure someone will, some people will reach out to you. I know that you are talking to some bigger groups in SA as well. And the benefit I see in that is that obviously on our side, like over there, compliance is a big issue. It's becoming more and more of an issue. And I know it's only going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse than what it already is. And the benefit of you dealing with bigger groups is that I'm sure that's going to be a big focus for them, which means we can kind of smaller businesses are able to piggyback off that knowledge that you guys are going to be gaining on what needs to be done in SA, which is different to the UK.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, lots of some differences, lots of similarities as well. And I say, I think the narrative of the implementations of what we're seeing is quite similar, especially, like I say, from that compliance angle, like compliance is only getting tighter. It's also interesting to see how the regulators are now interacting with AI. And I think they are actually making it tighter now because they think they can, because AI actually helps from a compliance angle. Which obviously you can take of that what you will, but yeah, kind of very exciting to obviously continue to learn, I guess, more around the region. And like I touched on, happy to jump on a call and chat with everybody, and obviously explore what system can actually look like for each firm. And then, like I say, it'll be great from our side as well to continue learning and continue kind of moving forward within the region.
All right, great. Okay, Tom, thank you so much. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for getting up early for us. And I'm chatting to you next week, but I'm sure some of the group will reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I gotta get my coffee now.
All right, enjoy it.
All right.
Okay, guys. Yeah, so I've dealt with Tom. He's really helpful. No matter how small you think you are, I think they're just happy to deal with anyone. And yeah, as I said, I've just started this week with it, and I haven't really had time to look at it properly, but I'll make some time. But I think they are making inroads into South Africa. I know from the Influence Harbour thing, I know that Tian's talking to them from Old Mutual Wealth, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other groups are going to as well. And the benefit for us then is obviously the whole compliance side kind of gets taken care of by those bigger firms, because I do think that's going to be a big focus for them. Morgan, I see you on. I know you've been working with Saturn for a while. Any just comments or feedback from yourself?
Hey, Dirk. No, we've been very happy with Saturn. Like I said last time, we've tried all the others, and Saturn's, in terms of the workflow and the accuracy, is really good. I haven't actually had much problems with the accuracy, especially when you have an in-depth conversation around. I'm sure you've seen so far, but it has multiple headings. So if you have an in-depth conversation about estate planning, risk, even all their personal stuff, it really picks up, I'd say, like 95 to 99% of it, which is nice when you go back over when you're doing your notes for the client and the planning. So even some of the big clients with my father, when he uses it, when they talk about a lot of very detailed stuff, he was surprised how accurate it was. So yeah, been working well.
Yeah, and how are you utilizing it mainly at the moment? I mean, what's your initial focus been on, or what aspect of how are you using it in the business? For just note taking or for reports?
So at the moment, note taking, and then as well as taking the information from all the notes, and then using it to create. I've created some GPTs with my friend for record of advice and that. So that's being used. Take the info, literally spits out the record of advice. So that's been helping a lot. And then I've been using the task manager as well within the team, which has been that we started using like 3 weeks ago. So that's been good because we recently went onto the new system that he was showing you guys. So in terms of the business, mainly note taking, now also using it for compliance as well and tasks.
Okay. And just because it wasn't mentioned, but I know that the cost is per planner with I think unlimited amount of support staff. So
yeah,
the cost, and what are you paying? £100 then?
Yeah, £100 for myself, and then my dad also pays £100.
Yeah.
But then, like my dad has said, you know, you got to work out how much time is it actually saving, and then you split that cost, and it's cheap. So
yeah. No, I agree. But I'm just highlighting that you know, if you're a planner with a team of support staff, it actually, you know, I think the more you integrate it into your system. And then, sorry, I see Shannon's got his hand up, but Morgan, what's you using?
Sorry,
what CRM are you guys using?
Advanced Tech.
Okay, and does it integrate with that yet, or haven't you tried?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't integrate. I've chatted to them. I think they're working on other things so far, but we're also looking at just from the CRM side, like Ben was saying, you know, see what you actually got first before looking at other stuff. But we still, you know, some things are 1 or 2 roadblocks that trying to figure out in terms of the CRM, you know, just basically simplifying stuff. So still working out that process, because nothing's perfect. But yeah, there's no integration between the two yet.
Okay, cool. Shannon, you can ask.
Just putting something out there to Morgan and maybe Dirk as a topic for the group going forward. Morgan mentioned that how he uses the note taker then with a GPT to generate a record of advice. Perhaps Morgan could give us all a little bit of an insight as to how that's done, or somebody else, or just put it up as a future topic for one of these discussion sessions.
Yeah, I think that's what I was alluding to when I asked Ben, because, you know, obviously instead of reinventing the wheel, I know that they are doing this. So it's a bit cheeky because I know that you charge for it, which is fair enough. But I thought, you know, maybe in our next session we can ask Ben just to give us 20 minutes or half an hour on what they're doing, because we've all heard about building your own chat GPT, and I know a lot of my mates, the planners in the UK, they've done this extensively. Dan Halett's done it, and I mean, what he tells me this thing can do is unbelievable. I mean, it literally can replace people, jobs. So yeah, so we can have a session on that, I think.
Yeah, one of my best friends, he has a business now where he does AR consulting. So I've actually been chatting to him because I've said to him that in this industry there's so much opportunity, I think, in South Africa as well. So we've been having some conversations about, because obviously you can talk direct to me about some of the problems that I'm facing. So and I've chatted to Ben as well. But I think there's a lot of things to do, because I see what happens in the UK, overseas, like in the UK and that. So it's interesting. You know, South Africa always gets a bit, behind a bit, but I think there is opportunity.
Yeah. No, great. I think, last word is, remember, the hardest job in this business is getting clients, then keeping them. So, I mean, this stuff is all great. It can make us a lot more efficient. I think it can help in so many ways. And as Tom says, it's just going to continue to evolve. But remember to keep the main thing, which is being human and looking after the people that entrust us with their trust. Thanks, guys. Time's up, and we'll share on the WhatsApp group and next session next month. Cheers.
Thanks all.